Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vega Insights. I'm Luke Beto, and with me today is John Paganini. He is the president of Paguar Informatics Inc., a healthcare IT consulting firm providing services in AI, consulting, innovation development, system integration, strategic planning, marketing analysis, and product management. Additionally, John is the CEO of Crew Tracker Software, which provides business operation management software solutions for the snow and ice management and landscaping industries. John co-chairs the Northern Ohio HIMSS AI Center of Excellence, which is a collaborative initiative with over 100 committee members representing hospitals, universities, vendors, and community leaders. Its mission is to establish Northeast Ohio as a national leader in AI-driven healthcare by fostering innovation, sharing best practices, and ensuring responsible, ethical AI integration that improves patient outcomes and operational efficiency. John is also serving on the Northern Ohio HIMSS board. So, John, it's great to have you here with me today.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Pretty exciting. There was one other board that I'm on that's important. It's the Classic Thunderbird Club of Northern Ohio, which is
Okay,
really
yeah.
fun,
So
fun and
can't leave that one
nothing to
out.
do with healthcare. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So,
good stuff.
John, you've had a really storied career in healthcare, but it didn't start out in healthcare from what I understand. So tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you transitioned into where you are today.
Yeah. Well, my dad was in IT. In fact, that's the reason we moved from New York to Cleveland. And back in those days, in the 70s, you would think, well, you should do what your dad does. And so I always had that thought that I would follow in that footsteps. And so I did. I went to college, and one of those schools that in 10 months a phone call changes your life, and all of a sudden you have a little certificate that says you know IT, which, as we all know, means something, but not everything. But I was fortunate to get a job with a company called White Motors here in Cleveland. They made trucks back then, and I did that for about 5 years and managed their data processing department. And meanwhile, I went back to school, got a degree in data processing, a bachelor's degree in business, and kind of combined the two. And then that company actually got bought by Volvo, which was interesting. And then had to find another job, and found one in Cleveland called Union Carbide. And that was a company called Praxair. They sent me out to California to manage their West Coast operations. I did that for about 12 years, which was pretty exciting, living in San Francisco. And then while doing that, I was doing some interesting Salesforce automation with a product called Lotus Notes. If you remember that way back when, it was like the first groupware thing. And there was a startup company out of Rochester that saw me give a presentation about integrating Lotus Notes for Salesforce. And they said, we're doing some imaging stuff out here in the land of Kodak. It was a bunch of ex-Kodak employees. And they said, why don't you come and do a startup with us? I said, well, life is good in the big companies, but eventually we worked something out, and I left the comfort of the large company and went to a startup. We had 7 people, and that company actually grew to 50 people. We ended up selling it to Xerox. But in that
Wow.
time, I became kind of the vice president of document management and imaging. And also, there was an opportunity here in Cleveland to build a patient encounter medical record system for 2 doctors that were connected to the Cleveland Clinic. This is 1995. And so I built a patient encounter system that was to take them digital. And we installed it. It was working. It was great, with the exception of the fact there was still a lot of paper around, and it was causing some challenges there to mix the paper with the digital world in those early
Mhm.
days. But nevertheless, I got my feet wet in healthcare, and understood, what it would take to build a system like that. And then there was another opportunity to build a radiology information system. And this is 1999 now. And that was here in Cleveland. It was a radiologist who had a small imaging center, and his brother-in-law and myself, the 3 of us. And some of the kind of the logic and thinking and the scheduling and all the stuff that you would need to run a radiology imaging center was kind of present in the patient encounter program. So we ported that over, and it was in Microsoft Access at the time, which we quickly found out wasn't enough. So we moved it to a stronger database, Microsoft SQL Server, of course. And that company turned into a good company. It was we started with 3, we turned that into I think 50 people or so now, and then we winded up selling it to Merge Healthcare,
Wow.
which later got bought by IBM. But at that time, I really got to understand the nuances, the workflow, the integration requirements required for a small radiology company. You know, where there was big ones out there, of course, and they're still out there, the Siemens and the GEs and all those companies were present. And in order to work and play well with others, integration and interoperability was essential to participating. And there was a group back then sponsored by RSNA called IHE, Integrating the Healthcare Enterprise. And I
Yep.
immediately jumped on that back in, I think it was the year 2000, became a member, understood what it take to integrate DICOM, HL7, and so that you could share orders and records with the electronic medical records, much less the electronic health record itself. So that was an amazing learning experience along those ways. That really was the impetus for getting into the kind of the imaging business.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. I see so much volunteer work done in the IAG community.
Yes, very much
Um,
so. Pure volunteer.
and tell me a little bit about how, I mean, you mentioned it earlier there on how the impact that it had in the business you were building in your career.
Yeah, it
Um,
did. It did.
I suspect there are a lot of individuals that they have a job somewhere. They see all of the activity happening in the IHE community or these other communities of volunteers, and it interests them, but they might not see the return on investment of their time
Yeah,
in things like
sure.
that. Maybe you could share a little bit about,
I can, I
your
can.
perspective
Yeah,
there.
I can, Luke. And of course, having been on the Northern Ohio HIMSS board for a while, which is pure volunteer, and other boards, local colleges and universities, and just other boards throughout time, most of them being volunteer, and some of them actually you have to invest in as kind of a contribution. Yes, from a financial perspective, just a pure outlay of cash, I'll say. Yes, volunteerism, sometimes really you have to look deep to get that ROI. What I can talk about from an IHE perspective is the learning that occurred by um, going to something called the Interoperability Showcase, and testing and working with the different vendors and really understanding what it takes to be a company, a participant in the healthcare IT ecosystem. It's hard to put a value on that, but I can tell you that it helped the company grow in that sense. And why, we ended up selling the company eventually. But it grew me as an individual and made connections that I still have today in the industry. So there's a lot of benefits, and of course, when you volunteer, it's what you make of it. And if there's any advice to people who are looking to volunteer, you can put as a lot into it, and sometimes you'll get a lot out of it, and maybe sometimes you don't. And really, that is just depends on the situation, the person, the scenario, the organization. But my experience has been quite positive in so many ways, where the financial ROI, it comes, but it comes from different ways. And I can say that I've met a lot of people um, in the healthcare world that it winded up turning into consulting opportunities and other further opportunities later on in life. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really what you make it, of it. And I
Yeah.
usually say that when somebody joins, like the we mentioned earlier, the AI Center of Excellence. So that's up to. We just had a conference, and we've got a lot. We gave a presentation on what's going on at the Northern Ohio HIMSS Fall Conference here in Cleveland, and a lot of people came up afterward and said, "I would like to be part of it." So the organization is growing, and I think there's just a lot of spirit, a lot of energy around being part of something relevant, important, especially when it comes to something like AI. But it could be any topic in a sense.
Right.
There's a lot of group think and a lot of learning that comes from sharing with and partnering with others and being on subcommittees and just bringing some interesting work to light that people benefit from. So
Yeah.
much to talk about there, but
Yeah. It just seems as though there are so many opportunities out there to get involved. I myself am pretty involved in SIM, the Society of Imaging Informatics and
a great
Medicine.
organization. I
Yeah.
used to be part of that myself. Yeah, it's important.
And I'm getting more involved with the American Board of Imaging Informatics. So there's work to be done helping manage the certification in imaging informatics, the CIIP,
Yes,
um, and everything that goes with that. Um, but you know, those two organizations have imaging informatics in the name. But from what I'm hearing from you, there are so many additional opportunities to get involved in imaging informatics, but with other types of organizations such as HIMSS, uh, IHE. Um, there are regional chapters of HIMSS, correct? And then the AI Center of Excellence, which is such a hot topic, especially with SIM, for instance. A lot of the content that's being put out in the conferences and the webinars and things has to do with AI. Um, so I know there's a lot of interest in it. Um, Getting involved can be a bit of a challenge because it's new, and I don't know if there's a lot of established work groups and volunteer organizations working on AI. So tell me a little bit about um, if I'm individual that's interested in volunteering some time to help advance innovation in imaging AI and also just looking to get some ROI for myself through knowledge and
sure.
connections and things. Tell me what this AI Center of Excellence has to offer for a professional like that.
Yeah, and it really started. It started like this. We always, as Northern Ohio HIMSS board, we have conferences twice a year, and we really take a hard look at what's important in Northern Ohio in this case, but in the industry in general. And it goes to a global HIMSS perspective because, as you know, HIMSS is global. So we are pretty particular and specific when we look at the different abstracts, when we do a call for presenters about what the agenda for that day looks like. And we have been, always on the leading edge, I would say. When cybersecurity was a big thing, we always include cybersecurity. And then the past couple of years, we've been doing a lot of AI. And then in one conference, we had three different major hospitals speaking about their innovation in AI, all doing separate projects in a sense, but similar, but yet not connected. And so afterwards, I stood up and I said, everybody's doing such fantastic things. Why don't we consider a regional center of excellence for AI where we collaborate, work together, and move not only our institutions forward, but the region forward as a leader in healthcare AI? And that's how the AI Center of Excellence started. So what does it offer to people, the value proposition? Well, you're learning so much about different areas of AI in healthcare. Of course, ambient AI is very hot right now, but there's so many different areas where these models are just doing amazing things. Um, Literacy in this space is very important. How do we make sure that the clinicians trust the output that the AI is generating? As an example, so not only do the clinicians have to trust it, but the patients have to trust that the AI being used to determine their care plan, in a sense, is valid, good, trustworthy, and is doing the right things. So, of course, it's human plus AI. So that is an entire podcast in itself. But the value proposition is understanding what it takes to really implement this AI technology in a healthcare setting, generally speaking. So we're looking at advocacy too. There's a lot of activity out there in government. America came up with an AI action plan There's CMS has come up with interoperability. So there's some national advocacy activities that are going on. And even locally here in Ohio, there's a bill being proposed that says you cannot make an insurance denial decision purely on AI. A human must intervene just to protect us from AI making decisions that aren't inaccurate in a sense. So there's some good stuff going out there. So we have to be aware of that as well. Governance, having governance and a framework in place for every organization, much less a strategy itself, is critical. And we're also looking at data management and some of the interoperability and possibly creating, hopefully, an AI sandbox for us to play in and test our innovation and technologies in a safe place. So your question, and I'm sorry it was a long answer, Luke. The question was, what can someone get out of it? That is an example of some of the stuff that we're working on that as a organization, the Center of Excellence of now 130 people-ish, there's a lot to learn from. And you can, take it all in, which you can, or you can really work on certain areas that are of interest to you as well. Not to mention the people that you meet along the way that are mostly, Northern Ohio in this case.
Yeah, so and I wanted to clarify, so this AI Center of Excellence, this is a Northern Ohio HIMSS
Yes,
chapter
it is.
thing, right? But do you have to live in Northern Ohio to be a part of
No,
it,
we
or
don't. You
okay.
don't. You don't. Do we have some people? We have somebody from the Mayo Clinic. Good question. It started out like that, but then even Apple and Verizon jumped on board. Local connections, of course, but no, it doesn't. In fact, HIMSS is looking to this, the global HIMSS, as a possible model initiative in a sense. And we just heard that possibly another chapter is going to start a similar center of excellence. So
Yeah.
I
I
don't
was
know if
curious about
it's
that.
gonna
Is
be
it,
taken
are there
national,
other
but
chapters?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
So,
Maybe a model in some way. We did present to the chapters once on what we're doing in the Center of Excellence to help the other chapter leaders see what's going on there.
yeah. This is fantastic work, and it's clear that the Northern Ohio chapter of HIMSS is a true leader in this area, and um, something for anybody listening here that is involved in their local chapter of HIMSS to look at what the Northern Ohio chapter is doing
Yes,
and
they can
consider.
contact me for sure, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and I've found in my career that HIMSS really has. Been an innovator in imaging informatics
Mhm.
in a number of
Sure.
ways. Personally, I've been involved closely with the POCUS initiatives, the point of care ultrasound
Interesting.
initiatives, the
Yeah.
white paper that they've put together, and a lot of the guidance they've provided, and conferences and on the internet and so forth. Um, on how to properly implement a point of care ultrasound strategy. Um, it's really been fantastic work there. And then certainly just all of the enterprise imaging guidance that they've provided over the years, and how we can align our strategies in imaging informatics around the enterprise with the larger healthcare enterprise IT and informatics initiatives. Very important stuff. So, um, has that also been your experience, John, in terms of HIMSS being right at the forefront of innovation for imaging informatics and guidance? Or tell me a little bit about your
Yeah,
experience
sure,
with
sure.
that type of thing.
IHE started with RSNA in a sense. It started as a radiology initiative because all the vendors realized, with our big machines and our big technologies, how do we make sure that we can coexist in the same institution in a sense? And then it branched out into other areas like laboratory and just IT in general. Having a national registry. So there were so many areas that needed to be connected. And then HIMSS really took over that. In fact, there was something called the HIMSS Innovation Center here in Cleveland, and we winded up hosting a lot of the interoperability testing and demonstrations right here in Cleveland. And so HIMSS kind of had a good handle on that, and they were at the HIMSS. national event every year. They would have this massive interoperability showcase of all these different organizations showing their clinical workflows and individual examples of how all this stuff works and plays well together. And then HIMSS also got involved with enterprise imaging, and they have an enterprise imaging initiative as well, which is, I think, where you were going. So they are good at convening and bringing the leaders and participants in these initiatives together and ensuring that it moves forward, the initiatives, whatever they're working on. Like you mentioned, the point of care for ultrasound.
Yeah.
And SIM, by the way, is very good at that as well, as you know, and especially that CIIP and
Yes.
accreditation. That's great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the CIIP thing, basically SIM joined forces with the ARRT, the American Registry of Radiological Technologists, to form the American Board of Imaging Informatics years ago, 15 to
Yeah.
20 years ago, I
Yeah.
believe.
I
They
remember that.
formed that body to help certify professionals in imaging informatics. And man, that has truly, I mean, it's been a game changer for my career. I became certified, I think it was back in 2012. Um,
Good.
but
Yes. I
just,
was certified too, but right when it first started. I have my
yeah,
badge
yeah.
somewhere, but I didn't
S-
didn't keep it up. I
And
should.
I think the main thing with it is, you know, it forces you to become a little more well-rounded. Everybody has their
Yeah.
background. But to pass the tests, you know, you need to brush up in certain areas. And just that concept of, you know, let's establish a foundation for imaging informatics professionals so that, um, you know, hiring managers and colleagues can at least recognize the professionals that have at least a foundational level of understanding of imaging informatics as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can build from there. And you know, there's just so many great things that do stem from these societies and you know, volunteer organizations, frankly, that a lot of this work would not be possible without their help. And so I've been trying to get involved myself, give back and to help move the agendas forward in the things that I'm passionate about. And I would really encourage anyone listening to do the same. And John, I'm sure you would concur. Maybe you can
I
talk about um, how you feel it's affected your career being so involved in these types of societies and volunteer organizations.
Yeah, it's there's a lot there. But certainly IHE made connections that led to other career inspiring and types of moves. As I mentioned earlier, some consulting came out of that, for example. But just I would say that being showing up, there's an old saying by I think it was Woody Allen or Groucho Marx said, showing up is just half of the game in a sense. And so just being there and being around and like showing up at the conferences and experiencing that and talking with people and seeing what's going on. And even if you're, just having dinner with some people, there's just a world of growth that occurs from that and establishing those relationships. The world, in general, is all about relationships, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if you're not present and you're not there, those relationships don't get established and continued, over the years. And so everybody's in the same, industry for all of their life for the most part. They move around, maybe different companies, but and maybe even switch gears from a clinical side to IT or vice versa. But still, they're around in the same area.
Yeah.
Yeah, my message
Fantastic
there was just
perspective there.
network, but I guess network and participate,
Yeah.
be present.
Just being involved, being
Yeah,
there. I love that. Um, And I can speak firsthand to times when I had waffled back and forth on whether or not I want to go to a certain conference or be
sure.
involved in a certain work group. But then looking back after doing it, it was just so important to be there and to meet that person or listen to that interesting um, lecture that really changed the way I thought about things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
and
you'll hear
so
something, like that's the wow factor that can be game changing for your business, for you personally, both. It's really the unexpected, and a lot of people go to the conferences with a really disciplined, planned agenda, and that's good too. There's no harm in being structured, but it's the unstructured, unplanned occurrences and events that really can be, yeah, just game changing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're delivering this here right in the spirit of RSNA planning, and many
yeah, right,
people
right.
probably determining if they're going to go this year or not. And that's one that for me it's a can't miss, just because of all of the opportunities to network and learn about all the exciting things happening. Vega will be having a booth at RSNA,
Good,
so look us up
good.
if you're going to be there. Um, we're really excited about
Yeah,
what
tell us
we
about your
feel.
AI initiatives.
Yeah,
Speaking
we
about
we
AI,
we really do feel that we're gonna be showcasing the latest and greatest in AI workflow tools.
awesome.
We have a huge suite of AI-powered workflow solutions, from AI-powered reporting to AI-powered work lists and AI-powered diagnostic solutions and AI platforms. It's all solutions pertaining to leveraging AI to help imaging workflow efficiencies. Um, and you can bounce around and try to get a good look at all of these by going to numerous different booths. But if you just come to the Vega booth, you'll be able to see um, a lot of solutions working together there, and you can determine if there's anything in there that would make sense for your organization.
Yeah, it sounds great.
We do a lot with data curation for AI developers. So if you're an AI developer, you're looking for data, come talk to us about how we can help you get the data that you need in de-identified HIPAA compliant form.
That's,
And
we'll suggest
also, if
that,
you're a
I'm
healthcare
sure.
provider that's interested in monetizing your data or finding ways to help your data foster innovation in the industry, we have a great program for you. A lot of exciting stuff at the Vega booth, but of course, Aris and I will have a lot to offer for pretty much any imaging
It
professional
always
out there.
does. In fact, that company I mentioned, called Logic, we had our first customer thanks to RSNA back in it was either 99 or 2000, but that kicked it off. So RSNA
That's another
is a
good
great
point.
platform for that. Yeah,
If you're a vendor out there that's maybe never exhibited at a conference, I would encourage the vendor community to give it a shot. And RSNA would probably be my recommendation
oh for
um,
sure.
to start with. So um, you'll never know the opportunities that could be out there unless you give it a try, and it does take some investment of time and money to do, but I think it's been a wonderful thing for Vega, and we'll continue to do it. So,
Yeah, I'll
uh,
tell you an exciting story. Do we have time
sure.
for
Yeah,
a quick
yeah.
story?
Let's hear it.
It was at our RSNA demonstrating. Luke, I worked on CAD, which was early days of AI, computer aided detection.
Yeah,
And this is with a startup out in Virginia called Guardian Technologies. And we had technology that could detect lesions and it detected cancer in mammography images, and it was pretty powerful. So we had actually built a wrist, we built a PAX, we built a viewer, and then after we received the images from mammography, we would process them and kind of in a second look type of approach to it. Take a look here. We'd mark where the on the image. This is back in 2008 timeframe, and we were showing that at RSNA, and an organization from South Africa walked up and they said, "This is interesting how you can detect these things on these images. Do you think you can do that with tuberculosis?" And we kind of looked at each other and said, "Let's try." And so we built a small little pathology system. We put a digital camera on top of a microscope, digitized the images, automated the whole process of taking the pictures, and then fed it to our AI engine, in a sense, which was CAD back then. And it was pretty good at detecting whether there was tuberculosis on the slides or not. And it was at, maybe 80% of the slides could be detected based on accuracy and confidence levels, of course. And then for that small percentage where it was tough, we had a human in the play, but it was machine learning, so we were getting better and better. So that was just an interesting outcome from a RSNA experience.
Mhm. Yeah.
Cool area.
Yeah, it's crazy the unexpected things that can happen just by getting involved and putting your offerings out there and just being present, like you mentioned, present at the conferences, present in your communities. And I think that's how I'd like to close this conversation is just a word of encouragement to those out there that are passionate about the field that they're in. The imaging informatics community, we need more volunteers. We need more people contributing. Um, the innovation isn't going to happen on its own, and just want to encourage everyone to get involved. John and I are both here for anyone that is interested to learn more on how they can get involved, and we'd love to talk to you about that. So thank you so much for your time today, John.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Luke.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody
Pleasure.
out there watching, and we'll look forward to our next episode. So thank you, everyone.
Great. All the best.